बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। या अय्युहन्नास इत्तक़ू रब्बकुमुल्लज़ी ख़लक़कुम मिन नफ़्सिन वाहिदा। अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला कुरान मुक़द्दस में इरशाद फरमाते हैं कि लोगों, अल्लाह से डरो और अल्लाह ने तुम सबको एक जान यानी आदम अलैहिस्सलातु वस्सलाम से पैदा किया है।
I will be just translating close as to my best extent. So Imam Sahib, he is saying that I start in the name of Allah, who is the most gracious, merciful, and then he is quoting a verse from Holy Quran, the closest translation of which is, O people, be afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has created you, all of you, from only one soul. That's the Adam, Prophet Adam alayhi salam.
दुनिया में जितने भी इंसान आबाद और बसते हैं वो सब एक ही माँ और एक ही बाप की औलाद है।
All those people who live in this earth, all of them are son and daughters of one father, one mother.
हम एक दूसरे के भाई हैं।
All of us are brother to each other.
हम एक दूसरे की बहन हैं।
We are sisters to each other.
पैगंबर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने इरशाद फरमाया,
Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, peace be upon him,
अल खल्क़ु अयालुल्लाह, पूरी दुनिया के इंसान एक फैमिली हैं।
whole world is just like a family. That's what Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said.
पूरे इंसान इस तरह से हैं जैसा कि इंसान की एक बॉडी में मुख्तलिफ आज़ा होते हैं।
All human are just like a human body, just like different parts in a human body.
जब एक अज़ू में दर्द होता है तो दूसरा अज़ू उस दर्द को महसूस करता है।
When one part has a pain, other part also feels that pain.
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, हम आपस में भाई हैं, एक दूसरे के दर्द को महसूस करते हैं।
Thanks God, we are brother and we feel each other's pain.
यही वजह है कि आज हमारे बहुत से भाई और बहनों ने इस दर्द को महसूस किया और उसको महसूस करके वो यहाँ तशरीफ लाए हैं।
And this is the reason so many of you brothers and sisters felt that pain and all of you came here.
ये हमारे लिए इंतहाई दर्जे खुशी की बात है।
This is a matter of great joyness for us.
और हम आप सबका तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं।
And we are heartily grateful to all of you for coming here.
मैंने 3 बातें मुख्तसर तौर पर अर्ज करनी हैं।
I want to say 3 things briefly.
रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के बारे में मैंने नमाज से पहले अर्ज किया कि जब वो ताइफ से वापस मक्का लौटे,
Just before prayer, he was quoting a journey by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he went to a city of Taif in Saudi Arabia.
और मक्के के शरीर लोगों ने उनको दाखिल होने से रोक दिया।
And when he was coming back to his home in city of Makkah, the naughty people of Makkah stopped him to enter that city.
लेकिन उसी शहर में ऐसे बसने वाले लोग थे जो मुसलमान नहीं थे, लेकिन उन्होंने नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को प्रोटेक्ट किया।
But in the same city, there were people who were not even Muslim, but they still protected Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
यहाँ तक कि उन्होंने तलवारों के साथ आपका इस्तकबाल किया।
They even received him with swords.
और दूसरी बात, जब रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मक्का छोड़ा और मदीने की तरफ माइग्रेट हुए,
And when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated from Makkah to Medina,
तो जो आपका गाइड था वो मुसलमान नहीं था।
even the guide at that time was not a Muslim.
और आपने एक नॉन मुस्लिम पर इतना एतमाद और भरोसा किया कि अपना गाइड हिजरत के सफर में एक नॉन मुस्लिम को बनाया।
So he trusted so much even a non-Muslim that he chose a guide who was not even a Muslim, and he chose him as a guide for this whole.
रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु ताला अलैहि वसल्लम ने अपना एम्बेसडर बनाकर के भेजाया ज़मरी को, और वो उस वक्त मुसलमान नहीं थे।
And one of his ambassador, his name was Zamri, and he was not even Muslim at that time.
रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के बाद में जब ईरान और अरबों की जंग हुई है,
When after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam there was a war between Arabs and Iranians.
लोग उसको इस्लामी जंग कहते हैं, मगर तारीख कहती है कि वो इस्लामी जंग नहीं, वो जालिम और मजलूम की जंग थी।
People call it a war between two countries, but it was not really a war. It was a war between oppressor and oppressed.
तारीख के अंदर ये वाकया लिखा है कि ईरान के मैदान के अंदर हजरत मुसन्ना के साथ में क्रिश्चियन और ईसाई कमांडर पुलिस फौज लड़ रही थी।
It is written in history book that in the battlefield in Iran, one of the companion of Prophet Hazrat Musanna, he was fighting with Christian commanders there.
और जब एक ईसाई कमांडर, एक नॉन मुस्लिम कमांडर शहीद होकर के गिरा है, तो हजरत मुसन्ना ने उसको अपने गले से लिपटा लिया।
When one of the Christian commander, he got martyred during that war, that same companion, he picked up that Christian commander and he embraced him with his
और उन्होंने ये जुमला कहा था कि ये मेरा भाई है।
And he said at that time, he is my brother.
इसलिए हम एक दूसरे के भाई और बहनें हैं। अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला आप लोगों को जज़ाए खैर अता फरमाए। आप यहाँ तशरीफ लाए, हम आपका इस्तकबाल करते हैं।
Therefore, all of us are brothers and sisters, and we welcome you here and thank you for coming. Jazakallah khair. May Allah, God bless you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We start with the program, and inshallah it will be brief. And first of all, on behalf of Masjid Fatima, I would like to thank every one of you to the mosque, and we, from bottom of our heart, we are very grateful for your presence and you taking the time to coming out here and supporting this tragedy that we are going through. And with further ado, I will ask Sister Zainab Chowdhury to come to the podium and get the program started. Thank you.
I begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. I want to begin first by having a moment of silence to honor the memory of the 49 brothers and sisters who were brutally, senselessly murdered in New Zealand. Earlier today, when CAIR and community partners joined together to hold a news conference to offer reaction to the horrific terrorist attack that occurred in New Zealand, the board of directors, one of the board of directors, Brother Ghazam, he reached out to me and he was interested in hosting a vigil here in this community. And his concerns were very similar to the concerns of other Muslims all across the country and around the globe. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to invite Samantha O'Neill from the Baltimore County Executive's Office, Colonel Al Jones from the Baltimore County Police Department, Susan Radke from Indivisible Catonsville, Michelle Levy from Hinenu Congregation, Dave Rodwin from Indivisible Baltimore, and Pastor Susan Beck from the community of St. Dismas to please join us at the front as our guest speakers. Thank you all for being here with us today. And as a member of the Muslim community, as a proud American Muslim, as an unapologetic Muslim who is an activist and sees every single day the impact of Islamophobia, I cannot stress how powerful and how meaningful it has been for us to see the support from our interfaith allies and organizations who have reached out to express support. The world is mourning the 49 victims of the horrific anti-Muslim attacks in Christchurch, New Zealand. It was an atrocious act of violence. It was committed against a people of faith in the midst of their prayers. In the Quran, the Muslim holy book, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, in chapter 5, verse 32, he who takes one life, it is as if he has killed all of mankind. And he who saves one life, it is as if he has saved all of mankind. And this is a very similar sentiment that we see across the Abrahamic faiths. I know in the Jewish faith tradition there is a similar verse as well. Right now, many of our communities are struggling to process the terror and the horror of these attacks. Many are asking and questioning what is our place in our society when we're seeing an unprecedented level of Islamophobia, of anti-Muslim bigotry, of anti-immigrant rhetoric, anti-refugee, anti-Semitic rhetoric in our society. So many members of our communities who are amongst the most vulnerable are feeling the most afraid. And a society is judged by how we protect those who are most vulnerable amongst us. And as we process the impact and the implications of this horrific attack, I want to say that it's okay for us to grieve, and it's okay for us to mourn. I didn't go to sleep last night. Many of you probably did not sleep last night either. I'm running on 24 hours of adrenaline, over 24 hours of adrenaline and constant responding to the queries of this incident, of these attacks. And this morning, I received a text message from a sister, and she said she was afraid to go to Jummah, to Friday prayer. Her family is a regular. They go to Friday prayer at the Islamic Society of Baltimore every week. But today she did not want to go, and she did not want to take her children because she was afraid. And brothers and sisters, I want to send a very clear message. It's okay for us to be afraid, and it's okay for us to be anxious and to be concerned. But we will not let fear change the way that we worship or affect our identity as Muslims in our country. Muslims have every right to be part of the fabric of our society. Islam has been part of our country since before its founding. I am a proud American who was born and raised in Baltimore. I'm the proud daughter of immigrants. And I'm a proud Muslim who will never allow terrorists to tell me that I do not belong in a mosque for fear that they will shoot it up. Where do we go from here? We empower ourselves. We do what we're doing here tonight. We unite with interfaith allies. We stand together unapologetically with one another and say that we will not stay silent while any single community comes under attack, whether it be our Muslim brothers and sisters, whether it be our Jewish cousins and allies, whether it be the African American communities, many of whom are Muslims and who exist at the intersection of marginalized identities in our country, whether it be indigenous peoples. All communities that are under attack have the right to feel protected and feel secure in our country. At CAIR, we're committed to making sure that we fight for the rights and liberation for all people. And I just want to share a brief story before I turn it over to our first speaker. I was at the Islamic Society of Baltimore for Friday prayer today. And I walked into the mosque, and I didn't know what to expect. I was afraid, I was concerned that people would not come to Friday prayer. I thought that maybe they would feel afraid, that they would feel targeted or victimized, or they just wanted to stay home. SubhanAllah, I have never seen so many people come to Jummah prayer at Islamic Society of Baltimore. And granted, they were not all Muslims. Many of them were interfaith allies, including the Jewish rabbi who stood side by side with Muslim brothers in the Musalla and prayed with them. And with one eye, he was watching the door to make sure that nobody walked in and shut up the mosque while Muslims were praying. And brothers and sisters, that is the kind of solidarity. I want to show you this picture because many of you might think that I'm making this up or that I'm exaggerating. I was shocked to see that not only was this rabbi there in the mosque, he was actually going through the motions and praying and watching the door to make sure that Muslims were safe. And so often, we as Muslims in our country, we live in fear of being targeted. But when we open up our hearts and we extend bridges and we extend olive branches with other communities, we find a strength and a solidarity and a sense of unity that we never would have imagined possible otherwise. And that was just an incredibly powerful moment for me personally. And it was a reminder that we have more in common than we have that makes us different from one another. And so I'm proud to have allies from across the religious spectrum here today with us. We also have Pam and Nick, who are from the Baltimore County Police Department, who are going to be sharing some tips and strategies for those of us who are coping with stress and anxiety and fear, so that we can process these emotions in a healthy way, inshallah. So first I want to begin by asking Ms. Samantha O'Neill from the Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski's office to please say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. The county executive starts his morning pretty typically. He wakes up, gives his daughter a kiss, then he probably does what you think a county executive should do. He scans his Twitter feed, he reads his text messages, he tries to digest the news that either happened later in the previous evening or what happened earlier in the morning. He scanned Twitter, digested what happened in New Zealand, immediately activated his team, police chief, our Community Services Bureau, our Deputy AO, to understand the impact here locally. To have a county executive who understands that this is an international moment, the international community coming together, but what can we do here in Baltimore County? That's important. This county executive stands with you. He was there earlier this afternoon at the Islamic Society of Baltimore. I actually live about 2 minutes from here. I go up Powers Lane often on my way to Dunkin' Donuts. This is our community. I know former County Executive Don Moeller's here with us tonight. This is his community. He lives in Catonsville as well. What I can tell you is that Baltimore County government will continue to be an ally and continue to be standing with you all. This county executive is actually launching an interfaith roundtable later this month to better understand how we can stay engaged, how we can partner, how we can build those bridges. So again, we're here with you. We will continue to stand with you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Samantha. And I want to recognize former County Executive Don Moeller for taking the time to come out today. And please, if you would say a few words, we'd be honored to have you share your thoughts.
Takbir! Takbir!
Good evening. I think Mrs. O'Neill said it best. She said, this is our community. This is our community. I was speaking with Mr. Khan in the hallway. He nailed it. He said, out of this darkness will come light. Out of this darkness will come light. We won't be defeated. We won't be afraid. And we won't let the forces of evil win. We will lock arms, we will stand together, and we will make this world a better place. The President of the United States can say today that white supremacy and these forces of evil are not an issue. We know that's not true. We are more powerful than that. We will stand together. We will pray together, and we will do what brave men and women have done over the ages when faced with oppression. We will stand tall, we will survive, and we will make this world a better place. So thank you very, very much. I know you have a full program. It's my honor to be here. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Michelle Levy from Hinenu Congregation.
Good evening. I have been out of town until about 2 hours ago, and so I'm walking in speaking to you from a place that is unpracticed, but raw and deeply from the heart. I'm profoundly moved to be here with you all in this sacred, holy moment of pain, of grieving, and immediately go to the moments after the Pittsburgh massacre when I was returning to my place of worship, to a Friday night service with my congregation, Hinenu. It's a new synagogue in Baltimore, anxious, afraid, unsure if I was making the right decision. And I walked up to the doors, and standing in the rain were Zainab, a group of teenagers from CAIR holding signs that say, "We love you, we are here with you." And they were our security detail for the night. You all were our security detail for the night. I understood in that moment, not here, but here in my gut and in my soul, what solidarity means. That our liberation is bound up in one another's, that our struggle is your struggle, your pain is our pain, and we're here in this together. So I offer my solidarity, my comfort, my grieving, and love, and to say that Hinenu and Baltimore's Jewish community is here with you. Thank you.
I just wanted to clear one thing. When we say takbir or Allahu Akbar, the meanings are glory to God. We don't clap, so when we say takbir, Allahu Akbar, meanings glory to God. So please excuse us, we don't clap.
Next, I'd like to invite Pastor Susan Beck from the community of St. Dismas.
Good evening. As our sister has said here, this is a day of grieving and fear and disbelief and horror. As I was coming in, I spoke to two young men who said they had seen the video. And I said, I am so thankful that I didn't, because I wouldn't be able to unsee that. What a horrifying thing. So I'm here, I'm just showing up because it's all I can do. I am the pastor of the community of St. Dismas. St. Dismas is the name of the legendary thief that was crucified on the cross next to Jesus, the repentant thief. And so we are a prison ministry. I minister to people who are locked up. And I believe that all of humanity is locked up in a certain sense. We're all locked within these fleshly bodies, and all we can do is try to get a glimpse of the divine. Our glimpse, we see different glimpses of the divine. That's the beauty of our different faiths. But what each of our glimpses have in common is compassion. Compassion. Any religion that doesn't teach compassion is not a religion. Any faith that doesn't teach compassion is not a faith. And so I come here with the only thing I can bring is compassion. I come here not being able to do anything or fix anything except for showing up. So here I am. My prayers mingle with yours this evening. Salam. Salam. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Beck. Next, I'd like to invite Susan Radke from Indivisible Catonsville.
Thank you. I stand here humbly before you as a white woman, and I am ashamed. White supremacy has taken over our country since its founding in the 1600s. It has harmed our indigenous brothers, our African Americans, our Jewish brothers and sisters, and our Muslim brothers and sisters. It must be eradicated and stopped. I am so sorry. I come here before you from the Catonsville Indivisible group and as a leader of Indivisible Central Maryland to let you know that we have worked hard in this community to educate our brothers and sisters in Catonsville about diversity. We have had several rallies and vigils and educational series, and we plan to continue to do that. We pledge that we in Catonsville will work to develop diversity and acceptance and love in this community, and we support you. I also want to say, lastly, I want to say that I am so saddened, I have no words, that these people have been murdered. It's just so hard to grieve and to get the words out and to wish comfort. The one thing that really bothers me the most is the response from the leadership of this country. It just is appalling, and it is not the country that I want to live in. And I thank you so much for listening to me, and know that we are with you. Thank you.
I think Susan's words are a reminder that even as the Muslim community was targeted, we're not grieving alone, that we have many allies who are also grieving with us and sharing in the pain of this loss with us. And we will emerge stronger together, inshallah, God willing. Next, I would like to invite Dave Rodwin from Indivisible, Baltimore.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dave Rodwin, and I'm here representing a group called Indivisible Baltimore, which formed in 2016. One of the reasons why we formed was to oppose some of the terrible, often racist, anti-Muslim policies that have been imposed upon us. And I find it useful on days like today to think about the meaning of the word indivisible. It literally means cannot be divided. And we cannot be divided as a community. We will not be divided. And Indivisible Baltimore stands here today, united with our Muslim brothers and sisters, to say that. I also just want to share one personal story. I spent some time living in Ahmedabad in Gujarat state in India. And one night I was invited for an Eid dinner at the home of a Muslim man I knew. And I mentioned casually that I was Jewish. And he said, his first reaction was he shot out his hand to shake mine, and he said, Muslim, Yehudi, Bhai, Bhai. Muslim, Jew, brother, brother. And that's always stuck with me. So I'd like to say to you all today, Yehudi, Muslim, Bhai, Bhai. And I stand with you all today. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Humaira Zaid from, she's a professor of Islamic Studies at the Johns Hopkins University.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं पहले कहना चाहती हूँ कि आपने इतने इज्जत और प्यार से हमें इधर बुलाया है, बहुत मेहरबानी। I wanted to say the translation. Can you hear me? जी।
आप हमारे मेहमानों को ये बताइए कि चूंकि मस्जिद है इसलिए वो क्लब्स हम नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन हम आपको अप्रिशिएट कर रहे हैं और तकबीर कह करके हम आपका पुरजोर इस्तकबाल कर रहे हैं और तालियों से ज़्यादा आपका इस्तकबाल कर रहे हैं।
जी,
ये ज़रा बता दीजिए।
मैं अभी समझाती हूँ। Absolutely. Our hosts are telling us and want me to share with the guests here that we don't clap in the masjid. And so instead of clapping, the way we are being welcomed is through takbir, is through Allahu Akbar, God is greater. That is the greatest welcome that we are receiving in this masjid, and that is a message that I would like to say that I am blessed to be here in the company of all of you. I am blessed and thankful to be here with you all at this time of pain. Pain for our Muslim community, pain for our human community. I am blessed to be here with people who have stepped up, who have supported us, who have given us love, who have given us compassion, who have given us respect. I look around and I see the young people, and as an educator, this is where I go first. I see my children, my own children, I see my other children, I see all the children and all the young people here, I see my students. And I think about the world that they have inherited, and I think about the challenge that is before them. And I think about everything that they have to do in order to stay focused, stay centered, stay true to their faith, and stay true to being a good human being, with everything that is coming at them from within and without the community. And with this thought, even as this thought was going through my head when I first heard of this horrific murder, at the same time, I fell to my knees in gratitude. Because what we have is not just this beautiful community to support us. We have the deep, deep well springs of our religion. What we have is what Islam offers us. Because Islam is not a badge. It is not something we can slip in and out of. It is something that is deeply in our veins, in our hearts. It is our connection to God. I fall to my knees in gratitude because God opens a window for us through this pain to connect with His vastness, to connect with the pain and find solace in this deep connection with God. Hazrat Rumi tells us that the wound, the deep wound, is where the light shines in. See, Islam is a life quest. Our religious traditions are not badges, they are life quests. And life quests are not meant to be easy. We are going to be tested over and over and over again. And these are the tests that bring us closer to each other. As we see here in this room, these are the tests that bring us closer to people whose hearts are aligned with ours. And I want to name this because sometimes we get so caught up in everything that we have to hold back in order to just survive and feel like we can hold to our faith. But it is our faith that is our means to survival. It is that deep, abiding, forever connection with God that is the means to our survival. And so we must go back to it in order to not just survive, but to thrive, be free, be in community, and be liberated. And so I give my love to all of you. Inshallah, we may follow this quest together, hand in hand, with our brothers and sisters of all religions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaid, for those beautiful words. Next, I would like to invite Colonel Al Jones from the Baltimore County Police Department. And so what Colonel Jones is going to do is share some tips and strategies that all of us, regardless of our faith, can employ whenever we're in our houses of worship so that we can feel more empowered and secure.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start out by saying today the event that took place was a very tragic event. We at the police department do not condone that kind of behavior. I'm here representing the department to let you know that we stand in support of you and your community. We want to build partnerships, teams. We want you to be a part of our community here in Baltimore County. Today, after the event, we have increased our patrols throughout Baltimore County. We want to make sure that you and the rest of the religious institutes in Baltimore County were safe and felt safe. We also want you to understand that partnerships and relationships are so important today. We need your partnership. We need your partnership with Baltimore County Police Department. The relationships are so important. It helps us. It helps us in days and times like this to get over it. One thing I am going to say, it's so important. You may have heard it before. When you're out in your daily, when you're out in the community in your daily activities, if you see something suspicious, please call 911. It's very important because you never know what crime you may be preventing, what situation you may be stopping, or what life you can be saving. So I say, if you see something suspicious, call the police. See something, say something. It's important. One thing I know that it's important that you know that we have a Homeland Security team. They have been working tireless, going around Baltimore County, training on active shooter. What I would suggest, and I highly recommend, that you have our team come in and train you guys on active shooter. So what it's called CRAZE training. It's civilian response to active shooter events. It teaches you your do's and your don'ts, and it teaches you how to stay alive. So that is one thing, and the other thing is, again, it's just the partnerships that we have here. If you see any suspicious packages around your building, please give us a call because it's important, and we want you to call. I don't care if you call 1 time, 100 times, or 1,000 times. It's important that you pick up the phone and make that call because you never know whose life you're going to be saving. So thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And if there is any congregation, either this particular congregation here at Masjid Fatima or any of our interfaith allies who are interested in hosting that kind of a training, an active shooter training, CAIR would be happy to help coordinate the logistics and make that happen. That's not our problem. And then finally, I would like to bring forward Pam and Nick, who are from the Baltimore County Police Department, and they're going to share some tips and strategies on ways that you can cope with the emotional trauma and the aftermath of these kind of horrific attacks.
Takbir. Takbir.
Assalamu alaikum. And thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be a support. We're here to kind of talk about some of the feelings and effects you may be noticing after having experienced this. This is a trauma. This is a trauma that happened to your community. We're on the other side of the world, and we're feeling it. And I know that there's a video that's circulating, and I know that some people have seen it. And that affects us. And I kind of want to talk about what you may expect in the days to come, what you may expect from yourself, from people you care about. I've already heard some talk of, difficulty sleeping, right? Maybe you may be feeling irritable, angry, crying, no appetite, all kinds of appetite, want all the food. Any of that is normal, and this is something that you just, it may not be comfortable, especially some of the symptoms of fear, anxiety. That's your body tracking for threat. That's you looking in your environment and looking to see if something is coming at you. As much as you can do to notice the places, spaces, and faces that help you feel grounded and safe, that's the kind of thing that will be, an antidote to those feelings. But again, I want to explain that it is really normal to have some upset, especially, having trouble sleeping, having trouble eating, those kinds of things you can expect, and they should subside. They should subside. Numbness is another one. You may just be feeling nothing, and you may kind of just be going through the motions today. You may go through the motions tomorrow, and that's okay too. Again, try to find those moments and places that you can kind of set things down, take a break, do what you need to do for yourself. This is already a really lovely gathering in service of that. How wonderful to come and be a part of this. These are the kinds of moments that you should be seeking out, even in your smaller groups in the days to come. Find the people, places, and faces. I will also say, as much as you can, again, going back to that tracking for threat in your environment, a lot of us are going to be probably reaching for our phones. What's the next news about this? What's the next information that might be coming at me? What do I need to know? Find some moments where you can set that phone down. As much as social media can connect us, it can also leave us feeling very, very isolated. And that's the last thing we need. We need to be in the presence of people we care about, in their presence. And so if you notice yourself turning towards those things, take a break, set it down. I promise it will be there when you pick it back up. It is not going anywhere. Again, another thing, when we don't know how to take care of our hearts, sometimes it's easier to just say, okay, how can I take care of my body? Drink water. Eat healthy food. Try to get what sleep you can, even if it's difficult. Those little few hours, this helps your body be in a place to support your heart and your mind in the days to come. I think all of this is normal, but there does come a point where it becomes really uncomfortable if you feel like some of these feelings are getting in the way of your daily life. If it comes to be a week or two later and you still feel like you're not able to do some of the things that you might like to do, that might be the time, that moment to say, okay, let me check in on that. Maybe I would like to reach out. Maybe it's reaching out to people in your community. Maybe it's reaching out to someone like me. And we will, Nick and I will be spending a little time afterwards, just if anyone wants to talk with us informally, that's fine. We'll also be leaving cards for our hotline, where if you or people you know need additional support, we can help with that. Just give us a call. And again, thank you so much for having us. What a lovely gathering. Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on something as well, as far as from the traumatic aspect of things. In our line of work as law enforcement, we tend to see a lot of scenarios that can be pretty traumatic, whether they be something small or big like this. And this was certainly a tragedy in every sense of the word. And I'm very sorry for the loss of your brothers and sisters. And, going forward, I know from my personal response to this, as far as when I heard about it, I was extremely saddened, and then I was filled with a lot of rage. And I'm sure you all as well have experienced that, and will continue to, as this kind of goes in through the media and everything else. Because there are those out there who did not understand the Islam religion, and they're just going to go with what is coming out on social media, and it may not be entirely factual. And that kind of doesn't help whatever progress we made as a community. So that also goes into the traumatic aspect of things. So please be sure to reach out to your family that is here and around the world as well. Us. We, like my partner said, we'll give you our hotline number. We're more than happy to talk with anyone and everyone, because indeed, as we are one family as this in this world, and this is certainly, hopefully, while it's bad now, this will bring us maybe a little bit closer as far as in the future, we will continue. I know the Colonel said we've set up patrols and everything else. That's, I signed up for this job to make sure something like that didn't happen. So that's where my sadness comes in too, as far as that, that something like this would. So I know we as police officers will do our very best to make sure nothing like that happens here. But as this goes through, just keep in mind things may resurface, but it does get easier over time to sort of compartmentalize everything and deal with it. And the support you have is very important. And it is important, especially to reach out to those other people. So, thank you very much.
Takbir. Takbir.
Thank you so much, Pam and Nick. So with that, we'd like to open up the floor and ask if anybody has any questions. We wanted to make sure that we created this as a space where we're not only talking to you and sharing with you messages of solidarity and support, but also providing a space for you to be able to ask questions and share any concerns that you might have. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. No? Going once.
We need to have some extra security during the, particularly for Juma prayer and the Ramadan which is coming.
Sure.
There's some police presence here in the masjid.
Absolutely. So CAIR recommends that each mosque, if possible, to allocate funding in your budget to have a security officer or a security guard who is responsible for monitoring the premises of your mosque, especially when there are prayers or when there's activity or events that are planned. CAIR also offers a free mosque tool safety kit. And in this toolkit, we provide specific best practices that have been vetted by Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies that share tips and suggestions on ways that each mosque board can help kind of strengthen and boost the security. But I think what Colonel Jones mentioned, I'd like to come back to that, is that if you notice anything, trust your instincts. And if something seems off, to report it right away. I think oftentimes we're so kind of zoned in on our own, our own life and what's going on around us that we don't really pay attention to other things that might otherwise flag some kind of concern. So if you notice anything, to report it right away. But CAIR can also work with the mosque leadership to organize an active shooter training to make sure that the congregation here, God forbid, that you ever have to use anything, the knowledge that you will learn, but it's better to be empowered and to know what to do in those kind of situations. We can help schedule that, and then we can also set up an assessment of the property, and we have experts who come and they assess the property and they identify weaknesses and they give recommendations on ways to beef up security. And there's going to be funding available through the state of Maryland. Governor Hogan actually recently allotted $5 million in the state budget, to boost security at all houses of worship. So not just mosques, but all houses of worship. So that should be available come June. So we'll work with mosque leaders on that. Are there any other questions?
I know law enforcement must be doing their own monitoring of social sites and everything. I know these kinds of guys, they put their manifesto and all that kind of stuff. But is CAIR also monitoring? Like, do they have any kind of resources so they can also do some proactive use?
Yeah, so CAIR, if you're speaking specifically to the video, CAIR has been recommending for community members to not share that video. The fact that the way that it was recorded, the perpetrator specifically was trying to get attention. He was trying to glorify the attack. And so we're strongly advising people to not share it. And if you do see it on a social media platform, to report it right away. Because federal agencies are monitoring and they're quickly taking them down. So when the video first became available, it was all over the place, and now you might not be able to find it so easily. But we do monitor hate speech, especially threats that are made online, and we encourage anybody who ever receives those kind of threats to report them right away. We do not play around when it comes to safety and security for any community member or any individual. So, yeah. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much for that question. I was hoping somebody would ask that. So the question was, how can you be an effective ally? What can you do to support the communities that are suffering the most? So we actually have a list of 5 suggestions that you can incorporate. Number 1, there is an American Muslim community-led fundraiser on LaunchGood. Last I checked, in under 20 hours, they had raised over 750,000 New Zealand dollars to help support the families, the victims of the families of the victims and the community that's directly impacted in Christchurch, New Zealand. So I don't have like flyers with me, but the URL is really easy. It's launchgood.com/churchchrist or Christchurch. My lack of sleep and running on adrenaline. So launchgood.com/Christchurch. And we're encouraging folks, if you are able to make a donation. Number 2, it's very important to recognize that this is a terrorist attack. Oftentimes we see that the way media reports on these kind of incidents when the suspects are Muslim versus when they're not is very problematic. And the framing of this is very clear that this is a terrorist attack, and the framing of it needs to be correct. So if you see people who are reporting this as like a massacre or like a tragedy or something like that, it's important to correct the narrative and say that this is a terrorist attack, exactly what it is, motivated by bias and hate. Number 3, there's a video, as I mentioned, circulating of the attack, to not share that, and if you see people sharing it, to tell them that they need to take it down right away. In unequivocal terms, we have seen people forwarding it in WhatsApp groups. We're telling them to delete it right away, and that's very important because there's no label or warning, and we have no idea how that's going to affect people who view it. Number 4, rather than talk about and give attention to the attacker, let's center the voices of the impacted communities and allies who are doing good. So there's so many positive things that are happening around us. There are people who are coming forward, who want to help, who want to give back, who want to provide support, who want to show allyship. So rather than talking about the attacker and giving him attention, we encourage allies to amplify those voices that are helping to correct that narrative. And lastly, check in on Muslim communities in your life. Like exactly what our allies are doing here today, what you're doing here today, this is incredible because you're showing your support for the Muslim community. And just even beyond today, if there's a mosque in your neighborhood that you've driven past but you've never ventured in, it can be scary going into a house of worship that you've never been in before, especially if you've been led to believe that they're scary people. But I strongly encourage you to reach out to different communities, not just the Muslim community, but even the Jewish community. I remember about the first time I walked into a synagogue, I had no idea what to expect. And I left there feeling like I had a new family. And you just make bonds with people who are from different walks of life. So check in on people in your circle who are Muslim who might need support. And if CAIR offers a free bystander intervention training, so if you would like to organize that or coordinate that, we'd be happy to work with the MSA, inshallah. Are there any more questions? Sure. How can we, as Muslims or non-Muslims, draw attention to the fact that this is as much of a formal, school of political, Sure. It's no secret that white supremacy is one of the greatest global threats in our society today. And it doesn't just affect Muslims. We've seen Sikhs that have been murdered in temples, Jews that have been murdered in synagogues, Christians who've been murdered in black churches. It's a very racist, virulent ideology that jeopardizes the safety of all Americans, regardless of our race or religion. And so it's very important to call it out for what it is. And one of the biggest things that we have to do is hold media accountable and hold our elected officials accountable. So oftentimes we'll see, messages of sympathy and support in the aftermath of these kind of incidents, but demanding that elected officials especially, call this out for what it is and not ignore the elephant in the room. It will help change the tone, because a lot of our society actually gets that message from elected officials who have a platform to share that message. And also, I think if you like to write, or if you're interested in writing, consider writing an op-ed. Right? Pitch it to the Baltimore Sun or to the Washington Post, or even a local paper. It doesn't have to be a national paper. Share with your circle of friends on social media. Have conversations with friends and neighbors and people in your circle about the need to talk openly about this, because this is a scourge that threatens and endangers all of us. And if we don't address the elephant in the room, then we're not keeping anybody safe. So those are just a few suggestions.
Very much about white supremacy. Not circling around here, not there, but very much about how white supremacy is impacting all of us at the same time. And start pushing on that. And all the various organizations that can help you, start bringing them together to have that conversation, because it is a conversation that impacts all of us, regardless of religion.
And one more suggestion on that front. Last fall, the Trump administration reduced funding to address domestic terrorist threats in our country. And so I would encourage you to contact your members of Congress. And if you don't know where to start, contact myself, contact Brother Kazem. He can help connect you to me as well. We would be happy to connect you with your members of Congress and encourage them to restore that funding and increase that amount, so that way we can actually give this issue the seriousness that it deserves. Thank you for that, Susan. Does anybody have any suggestions? Is there anybody here who has ideas on ways that the Muslim community can interface more with our interfaith allies?
Give us your address, we will be there.
What's for dinner?
I think we should be having more this type of meetings in different locations, or sometimes maybe the church and other places, so that then we can build up with better relations.
There's a great church in Catonsville. Susan, maybe we could talk about ways to invite this community to come there and meet that leadership. I know we're short on time. Do we have to?
I just wanted to add that into it, that if you need to get together, let us know. We have families, we have people, they can interact, we can invite you or they can come to you, and so we can start a dialogue and just getting comfortable with each other. So after this, inshallah, we'll exchange numbers, and I will have all the information. I will send you the email, and you guys have our contact numbers and stuff. And any way we can help, we are here. You guys are our brothers and sisters, and we welcome you with open arms. And we thank you behalf of Masjid Fatima, Al Farouk Foundation, and Muslim community of Catonsville, we'll thank you from the bottom of our heart for taking the time to coming to all the guests. Special thanks to Sister Zainab Chaudhry and CAIR to putting that together in a short of a time. We wasn't sure that it's going to be happened, but we are very grateful for that. I'm very grateful to all the guests to taking the time and speaking to us, and all the guests, they taking the time to coming and joining us. And special thanks to all my brothers and Muslim brothers and sisters for taking the time and staying and praying with us and being a part of this grief. I thank you, and I will invite all of my guests. Please meet me in the back. I have some refreshment for you guys, so please, we wanted to exchange numbers and we wanted to thank you. With this, we conclude our program, and with the greeting of Assalamu Alaikum. May God be with you. Thank you.
Allahu Akbar.